So hi Nita, it's Michael and Chris and Seb here from Tamworth Baptist Church, and we're really glad that you've got time to talk to us this morning. This morning Uganda time, this afternoon Australia time. I just can see the beautiful trees in the background there, and I don't know, some kind of fence. Could you tell us where you are, and then tell us what the day's like there, because it's the morning I think over there in Uganda, and then what the rest of your day is going to hold?
Okay, well, hi everyone, and I'm really happy to be able to have a chat and share a little bit about life here. So I'm just sitting out the front of my house. I don't know if I can turn around this way. That's my house behind me, and this is just in my front yard. There's a bit of a garden there. Today it is sunny at the moment. There's a little bit of high cloud. Earlier there was rain clouds, looked like it was going to come into rain, but that hasn't happened. It's starting to be the rainy season again, so they're just starting to do planting here at the moment. Even this morning I came out and the guards who manage the compound, they were just doing some weeding and looking like they were sorting out where they might do some more planting. For me this morning, it started with going down to the house that used to be Lyle and Ingrid Lathrop's. They were our previous team leaders and have just moved back to the States. They actually had to go back a bit earlier than they were expecting. So we've spent the last month, we've just been finishing up moving things out of their house. That they sold to people. The thing that I had to get this morning was my rooster that they had been kindly keeping in their chook pen. And so I went and got that this morning and took it over the road. Across the road is one of the other girls, lives in the compound over the road, and she's going to look after my rooster for me now. I actually have Lyle and Ingrid's dogs staying in my compound, and they won't get on with the rooster. So the rooster has gone elsewhere. So I guess, yeah, something of being part of a team is we sometimes look out for each other, helping out in just practical ways like that. The dogs, they were due also to go to America with their owners, but their flight got cancelled. So they had to come back to us here in Moroto. So I now have a couple of dogs to look after. I think the guard may have taken them out for a walk, but they may come and harass me later on in this session. Yeah, but I just thought I'd sit outside. It's a bit dark inside the house, so
no, it looks lovely. It's a beautiful aspect behind you.
Yes, wouldn't see me all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rest of my day at the moment, everything's a bit strange with coronavirus. But I was going to be taking the keys back, the keys to the Lathrop's house, taking them back to the landlord. But I called him and he's like, "Oh no, I'm in Namalu. I'm not at home at the moment. You can bring them tomorrow." So that's one less job to do today. But here they're really trying to encourage us not to go out unless we have to. So at the moment we're all like we're concentrating on doing my reading for LFIO, that's leading from the inside out, the leadership training, and admin things for the team. So at the moment, that's kind of what I've been concentrating on.
Okay, Chris has got a couple of questions for you.
Yes, you've started to answer A couple?
Yeah,
Aren't you a
trying
clever
not
girl?
to.
You're prophetic. That coronavirus, now, how is it affecting your country? What sort of rules are being made for Uganda? And what about you in your compound?
Yeah. So for the country, even before we got our first case, the government locked down and said we're going to have restrictions. So currently, we now have had 79 cases total.
Oh.
And there's something like 46 have recovered. So yeah, there's 30 something who have not yet recovered. So they're the current active cases that are known in the country. So they have done a really great job of keeping it locked down. Initially, the first cases were people who were Ugandans who were returning to Uganda from overseas, you know, trying to get home before the lockdown. But that was only like 6 or something. The majority have been truck drivers coming into the country. Although everyone else is locked down, the government have said we still need to allow cargo in and for coming across the border. So the majority of cases that have come in have been from truck drivers coming across the borders.
Right, from outside.
Yeah, but they're screening all the truck drivers as they come in, so then they do catch them. And a lot of them don't have any symptoms, so they're feeling fine, they're driving their truck, and then they are actually carrying the virus. So for the rest of the country, all airplanes have been shut down. They did have a few which were like, okay, the people who are going home to their home countries need to be able to go, so they've allowed, you know, US embassy organised a plane to take people back to the US, and I think Australia might have done the same. For me, I'm not due to come home till it happen, but it's unknown if that will happen or if it will take 18 months or whatever. December was...
There's just a little bit of delay.
December. Yeah.
Okay.
So in terms of the lockdown, we're not allowed to drive our cars unless we're essential personnel like medical people. There are people who have like they've set up a task force. There's a national task force, and then each district has a task force for handling the COVID-19 outbreak. So if you have a role within that task force, then they will give you a sticker that says you're allowed to drive your vehicle. But basically, they shut down all buses and the minivans that run as taxis. But then people just went, okay, we'll get private hires to take us to places. And so we're not taking public transport. But so in the end, they're like, okay, we just shut down all vehicles are not allowed to move.
Right.
So it just means we're staying within Moroto and can only go as far as we can walk.
Right. So how's that affecting ministry for you and for your team?
Yeah, so we can only meet in groups of up to 5. So our team at the moment, there are 5 of us here, 5 adults. So we can meet as a team, which is good. So we're continuing our weekly meeting together. In terms of meeting, we can meet individually with people, but we just have to make sure that if we go to meet someone and there's too many people at their place, we just say hello and then either come back to my place or we move on to someone else to visit.
Okay. Might ask Seb to ask his.
For me, a lot of my
Sorry,
okay.
keep going.
Yeah, I was just going to say my general week, I had people I met individually, but I also had, like, normally Thursday morning I would be going to prison, to the women's prison, and doing some Bible storying there. We're working through Genesis and now into Exodus. But because that's a large group meeting, I can't do that. The same as like my visits out to Lothria, I would visit them and it would be a larger Bible study group. My church Bible study is more than 5 people. So those kinds of meetings we can't do anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Nita. Seb?
So my first question is, are the teenagers in Uganda eager to hear about God?
Yeah, I'd say there's a mixture. But there is much more openness, I think, than I might find in Australia. I haven't done a lot of work amongst youth myself, but just from having grown up in Australia and knowing how many of my friends were interested, yeah, I would say more people here are interested. It seems to be a little bit more amongst the younger, the guys. My housemate, who she's not with me at the moment, but Hayley, she had a fair bit to do with the high school here and Scripture Union meetings at the high school. And we had some who came to Lothria to our Bible study there who were some of the teenagers who are in school. And there was a mix of boys and girls, but in general, the boys seemed to have more interest. When Hayley was going to the high school, she would try to meet with the teenage girls, but they seemed to be less interested. They wanted to have a friendship, but in actual, like, let's talk about the Bible, let's look at what it says, they were less interested. But yeah, we have, there's been some real, stories of, like, some of the young men who have responded and they're really wanting to be discipled in how can I minister myself? How can I get involved in the Scripture Union? How, they're wanting to learn how to preach. They're wanting to learn how to go and share, just having one-on-one Bible study. They're wanting to learn how to share with their families. Some of the young men we've had, their families have been quite resistant to either to them going to school or just haven't really supported them in their lives. And yet their first thing is, now that I know about Jesus, I want to share that with my family. So even though they've had a hard life and haven't really been cared for by their families, or their families have sent them to school, but then kind of been hard, saying, you think you're better than us, or things like that, kind of putting them down for having gone to school. They're still wanting to share the gospel with their families.
That's great.
And the other question is, what's the strangest food that you've eaten in Uganda?
Yeah, well, in general, there's not a lot of strange foods, but I might just turn around here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a big termite nest just next to me there. And the other day, it's been next to me on the other side of this fence, there's a sports field. and normal times you have people coming to play soccer, or there's a tennis court there, very rough dirt tennis court, but it's there. But you just tend to, in the afternoons especially, you tend to hear people gathering there and maybe playing soccer. But for the last few weeks, it's been pretty quiet because people are supposed to be social distancing, not playing sport. But the other morning I came out, there's all this noise, like all these little kids' voices. What's going on? They're all on the other side of the fence at the termite nest, picking out the termites because that's their favorite snack here. They either just eat them or they roast them and then eat them. They might salt them. So they do that, and grasshoppers as well. When I was in Kampala, we were going along the roads, and you see all these sheets of corrugated iron. They're just like lengthwise and kind of forming these funnels, but it kind of looked like they were just on display, like they're showing like the different grades of corrugated iron or something. I wasn't quite sure. I'm like, that's a really strange way to display your corrugated iron. And then one time I went past, it was night and the bright lights were on. And then the driver said, oh, they're collecting the grasshoppers because they come for the lights and then they slide down the corrugated iron and they collect them at the bottom. I was like, oh, that's what they're doing. So I have tasted grasshopper and the termites. They're a bit crunchy and I don't know. Like, they're not awful, but they're not my favorite thing either. So, you know, if people offer them to me, if I feel I have to be polite, I can eat them, but I don't, you know, I don't go to the nest here and say, hey, give me my share. Like, yeah, I don't go digging them up. But sometimes when it rains, all the termites start coming out of the ground, and if you're like out and about, you just see people everywhere on the sides of the roads in whatever ground picking at termites. If there's a termite nest, you'll see a whole lot of people gathered at the nest, like trying to grab as many as they can. So that's the local snack.
It's good to know that if the lockdown keeps going for a long time, you've got some food right there, right next to you.
Yeah, I won't run out of protein. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing, my friend Taryn, she tried the grasshoppers and she got an allergic reaction.
Oh.
So it is possible. They do know that some people get allergic reactions, but I haven't so far.
Yeah. You've got to try it to find that out, don't you?
Yeah.
We might go to our last question. Just ask you how we can pray for you in the coming little while.
Yeah. I think for me personally at the moment, I'm struggling a bit with the leadership role that I have. Leadership always, you know, there's ups and downs, and sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes we need to learn from our mistakes. And I feel like I've made a few of those recently, just in terms of relationships with the team. So just working through that a bit at the moment. And yeah, I feel like I was asked to be the leader because I have some leadership abilities, and I can acknowledge that, but I'm really feeling the areas in which I'm lacking. And I feel like the training that I've been doing is good, but it's a bit overwhelming. And how do I put it into practice? I'm not 100% sure. And at the moment it's just I don't have a lot of experience. I'm more learning as I go, and so that's probably a big prayer point. And especially at the moment, we want to honour what the government has put in place for the lockdown, but and have wisdom as to how to handle that. But we also want to see how can we become involved and still be meeting with people when we can, should we be getting involved in some health education just for this period of time? Maybe that will open up relationships with local people in areas that we might not have previously been able to get involved with. So that's questions that our team is facing at the moment, because especially as this looks like it will be an extended thing. It's not just like stay inside for our 14 days and then it's going to be over. Yeah, look, going forward, yeah, how can we continue to be engaged? And our teams, we're still trying to prepare and look at church planting methods and how we can be more focused on church planting. So yeah, how do we do that even while we're in this lockdown? Yeah, so that's, I guess, what our team's facing at the moment. And yeah, and then prayer just for the people of Uganda. I think if the virus did come to this area and did start spreading quickly, there are a lot of people who are in the category where they would be susceptible to the more severe symptoms. The things they list, malnourishment, HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, all three of those are prevalent here.
Oh dear.
There are a lot of severely malnourished people. There's quite a few people with AIDS. I don't know what the percentage is of the population, but I know it's, there's people who tell me they're HIV positive. So I know there's quite a few people here with it. TB is very common. And then like there's malaria here. So people are already, their immune system is already coping with a lot, and it would be very difficult. The other thing, in terms of hospital equipment, my friend has counted up, she thinks for the whole of Uganda, there's only 41 respirators in the whole country.
Wow.
Now, there's more than 41 million people, so that's one respirator per million people. So I think the hospitals would be overwhelmed. Like, they wouldn't be able to provide for those who need the intensive care. Yeah, so I think if it came, it could be very devastating in terms of deaths here.
Yeah, very serious.
Which, when we're living amongst people who don't know the gospel, they're not saved, would be also eternally devastating as well. So
yeah,
yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing. Yeah, and
all right.
even without the, sorry, I was just going to say, even without the virus coming here, the restrictions are also difficult. Like, the children are not in school, which, okay, they're not learning, but they're also not getting their daily meal. So now the parents are having to provide that for them. So there's things like that which are also is impacting the community.
Wow. So yeah, it's hard for us to imagine how it impacts a country like Uganda. But thank you for filling us in. So we'll send this out to our church this weekend, and we'll be encouraging our congregation to pray for you. Thank you so much for making the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it, and we pray that God blesses you in your time there. And keep pointing people to Jesus and trusting Him. Remember, God uses us in our weakness so much more than in our strength. So keep on trusting Him and serving Him, and God bless you very much. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Seb. And thank you, Nita. God bless you all.
Yeah, thank you, and bye to everyone.
Bye-bye, darling. Bye.